Greetings, this is a goofy wrestling extra, I guess you can call it. Well, it's mainly another WrestleMania opinion video, or more or less an observation as we head down the road to wrestle. And I put this emphasis on the word WrestleMania. Now, I could give you a video that's a whole bunch of conspiracy talk about how this is just one big COVID metaphor. And by the way, WrestleMania 36 and 37 are just one big COVID metaphor. But I'm not gonna waste your time with that. Instead, I'm going to tell you about the internet wrestling community. Why they're a bunch of assholes, why they should not be believed, any of them, and why their sudden dislike about what the modern day WWE product is makes no godforsaken sense. You see, I'm aging myself. In fact, I'll give you my exact age. I am as old as WrestleMania is, 37. I am a child of the 80s. So much so that I still watch 80s shows. I'm a Power Ranger fan for life. And I love wrestling. But my love of wrestling has never come from the storytelling of wrestling. I can really give a darn. It's soap opera at worst, cringe the next. Sure, when I was a kid, I believed everything, because as a kid, you believe everything. But that's not the main reason I watch wrestling. No, the main reason is because athletes doing awesome things, looking awesome, was my big thing. I was a Hulkamaniac. And no, I didn't care that these wrestlers were half roided on whatever. And even when the WWE was going through its dark ages, its first dark ages, back in the early 90s, it was more gimmick than anything else. It was more character based than anything else. Then the Attitude Era happened, in which it was about blood, guts, boobs, and brawls. Everything was a bloodbath. Every big match was a bloodbath. Storylines led to bloodbaths. 3 months of build-up, very over-exaggerated build-up, almost to a cartoonish level, to a bloodbath. That's what the road to WrestleMania was between the years of 1996 to about 2002. And then, all of a sudden, in 2002, everything went PG. There's a lot of underground reasons. WWE had become a publicly traded stock on the New York Stock Exchange. Linda McMahon started chasing governmental pursuits, like being a senator and ultimately our former healthcare czar. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that one, did you? This led to the PG era. But one thing that is not often spoke about with the PG era is indie wrestling's influence on it. You see, when the PG era started back in 2003, indie wrestling, mainly Ring of Honor, was starting to get a foothold in the internet's popularity. Other wrestling organizations, such as Insane Championship Wrestling and others, were also making a note. But by and large, indie wrestling was growing in relevancy, and young stars were starting to get talked about on up-and-coming wrestling shows, similar to Goofy Wrestling Bullshit and other sites, mainly the burgeoning No DQ, and of course, other wrestling websites. This started to create indie buzz. A lot of those wrestlers that were signed out of the indie buzz came directly from those sites. OVW was a talent ground for these indie stars. It basically created all your ruthless aggression guys. But the indie movement continued all the way to what we have now with current day NXT. NXT is loaded with indie stars from all over the world. In fact, the Performance Center is supposed to get these guys WWE ready through a playbook. Due to this lean, WWE has gone more wrestling centric. You see, the reason why the storylines don't matter on this road to WrestleMania is because they don't. And it's on purpose. See, many people think that WWE is being stupid in their booking of WrestleMania 37 for getting storylines. No, they're not being stupid. This is completely on purpose. Why? Because the younger, more casual wrestling fan cares more about the actual in-ring talent than they do about the storyline leading into it. I like to call this the flippy shit revolution. More people care about flippy shit and big spots more than they do actually, being good at wrestling. This creates a weird dichotomy when they try to sell you wrestling stuff.
Okay, here's your soup.
It makes it very, very awkward when storylines are clipped early because of internet discourse, and storylines nowadays don't have anything other than two wrestlers hate each other for reasons and title cue match. But this is all by design because casual indie based wrestling organizations and now the casual wrestling fan that has grown up on indie promotions being their favorite now just expects the match to be good. Don't believe me, just go see many of the opinions of NXT takeovers. You guys do realize that a lot of those takeover matches that you fawn over don't really have a lot of build up to them, sans these two teams or these two wrestlers really hate each other a lot, and now they're finally going to blow it off. You do realize that's the NXT style of storytelling, right? That leads to these killer matches at the end, where it almost seems like the WWE out wrestles their writers. They do. It's by design. WrestleMania 37 will be the greatest in-ring WrestleMania possibly ever. I mean, just look at the card. Seth Rollins, Cesaro, Shayna Baszler, and Nia Jax and the others defending the titles, and for race noises, but then you have great matches like Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Roman Daniel Edge is going to tear the house down. Even Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and Matt Riddle and Sheamus are going to be great wrestling exhibitions. There's stuff like that all throughout the night. The only matches that seem kind of hokey are Randy Orton and The Fiend, built on great 3-month storyline character building, and this now Nigerian drum match between Big E and Apollo Crews. But they're still gonna wrestle their butts off because the modern day WWE has finally figured out what more casual, internet frequent wrestling fans actually want, not the Twitterverse. They just want to get to the match. They don't care about the build-up. They don't want any of the storytelling, any of the pretentiousness. They just want two very talented wrestlers to get in a ring and wrestle. But you see, this breaks up the traditional storyline based tradition that wrestling has been set on for decades, especially around WrestleMania season. How do you sell WrestleMania without the pomp and circumstance, without the overly soap opera grandeur? Well, this year the WWE is actually going to try to do it. To put the wrestle back in WrestleMania. And if you believe the internet, that's not enough. Which makes me question, why did you even begin to care about NXT anyway if wrestling isn't enough? Because that's all that NXT is. So you're now hypocrites now. Funny, because I'm looking forward to this WrestleMania. This WrestleMania is virtually my dream. Why? Because I've always put the wrestling first. And now all of you are exposing yourselves. All you supposed NXT fans aren't really fans at all. You just want it to look different, grungier. Then you care about the wrestling. But when the main roster cares about wrestling, oh, it's not big enough. So, are you really wrestling fans? Or do you just want to be entertained? Because I'm a wrestling fan. And WrestleMania this year, despite its more controversial underpinnings, is going to be the greatest wrestling event the WWE has ever put on. Because guess what? They finally have the wrestlers to do it. But then all of a sudden, character matters. Choose your side and stick with it. Don't try to play both ends, because just like a candle, you can get burned at both ends. Just a thought. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. I'll see you next week for a big WrestleMania preview slash stand and deliver goofy wrestling super show sometime next week. Man, it's gonna be busy. Find peace in your own nirvana.